Here are the most doomed versus the most defensible countries in a zombie apocalypse. From the worst country you don't want to be in during a zombie apocalypse, to all the way to which is the best country to be in during zombie apocalypse. In today's video, we're going to break down which countries will become graveyards versus which ones offer genuine hope.
Starting with Singapore, which on paper looks perfect. Wealthy, organized, efficient.
But when the dead start walking, this island nation becomes a nightmare scenario. With over 8,000 people crammed into every square kilometer, you're not dealing with zombies. You're dealing with a zombie tsunami. The moment one person gets infected in Singapore's dense urban core, it spreads like a computer virus through a network. Those pristine subway systems that move millions daily, they become underground rivers of death. The towering apartment complexes that house families efficiently, they become vertical tombs where the infected pour down stairwells like water. But here's the real kicker. Singapore imports 90% of its food. When global supply chains collapse on day one, you're not just fighting zombies. You're fighting starvation. Those beautiful vertical farms can't feed 6 million people. The strategic food reserves might last a few months, but then what? The island's geography that makes Singapore feel secure actually becomes a trap. There's nowhere to run, no wilderness to disappear into, no rural communities to retreat to. You're stuck on a concrete island with millions of other desperate people. And when the food runs out, the living become just as dangerous as the dead.
If Singapore is bad, Bangladesh is apocalyptic. With 1,100 people per square kilometer, this is one of the most densely populated countries on Earth. But density is just the beginning of the nightmare. Imagine, the Ganges Delta, where most of Bangladesh sits, is basically a giant floodplain. When the zombie outbreak hits during monsoon season, and let's be honest, disasters always come at the worst possible time. You're not just dealing with zombies, you're dealing with zombie soup. The flooding that happens regularly in Bangladesh would spread infected blood and bodily fluids across vast areas. Every river, every canal, every rice paddy becomes a potential infection vector. The very water that keeps people alive becomes the thing that kills them. And then there's the infrastructure problem. Bangladesh has made incredible progress, but when you're talking about 165 million people trying to evacuate through limited road networks, you get gridlock that makes normal traffic jams look like a Sunday drive. Those roads become killing fields, where people abandon their cars and run, only to be picked off by the infected masses following behind. The rural areas that might offer refuge in other countries, in Bangladesh, they're just as crowded as the cities. There's literally nowhere to hide.
The Netherlands presents a unique horror scenario that most people never consider. This is a country that exists below sea level, kept dry by an intricate system of dikes, pumps, and water management that requires constant maintenance and electricity. When the zombie apocalypse hits and the power grid fails, the Netherlands doesn't just face zombies, it faces the ocean itself. Those famous Dutch dikes that have protected the country for centuries need constant monitoring and maintenance. Without it, large portions of the country simply disappear underwater. Now imagine trying to fight zombies while you're literally drowning. The infected don't need to breathe, but you do. As the water rises, the living are forced into smaller and smaller areas of high ground, creating perfect kill zones where zombies can corner survivors. The flat geography that makes the Netherlands so beautiful also makes it impossible to defend. There are no mountains to retreat to, no natural barriers to slow down zombie hordes. It's just flat, open ground where the infected can see you coming from miles away.
But here's what most zombie survival guides miss entirely. The zombies aren't your biggest threat. Other humans are. In countries with high population density and limited resources, you're not just competing with zombies for space. You're competing with other survivors for food, water, shelter, and safety. And desperate humans are infinitely more dangerous than mindless zombies. Take a place like India during a zombie outbreak. With 1.4 billion people,
Even if 99% become zombies or die, you're still dealing with 14 million survivors fighting over scraps. Those survivors know how to use tools, set traps, and organize into groups. They'll kill you for a can of beans or a bottle of clean water. The psychological breakdown happens fast. Within weeks, maybe days, normal people become raiders, slavers, and worse. They'll use zombie herds as weapons, driving them toward rival groups. They'll set up toll roads where you pay with supplies or your life. They'll take hostages and use them as zombie bait. In densely populated countries, these human threats multiply exponentially. Every apartment building becomes a potential fortress controlled by armed groups. Every grocery store becomes a battleground. Every gas station becomes a checkpoint where you might not make it through alive.
Now, let's talk about the countries where you actually want to be when the world ends.
New Zealand isn't just good, it's perfect. First, the geography is your friend. 2 main islands separated by water, with a population of only 5 million, spread across an area the size of the United Kingdom. That's roughly 18 people per square kilometer, compared to Singapore's 8,000. When the outbreak starts, you have room to breathe, room to run, and room to hide. But it gets better. New Zealand is 1,200 miles from its nearest neighbor, Australia. Even if Australia gets completely overrun, zombies can't swim across the Tasman Sea. You're dealing with a contained outbreak that can't get reinforcements from outside. The country is incredibly self-sufficient. They produce enough food to feed 40 million people, 8 times their current population. Even if agricultural production drops by 75% due to the collapse of modern farming, there's still enough food to keep survivors alive indefinitely. The terrain is a survivor's dream. Mountains, forests, fjords, and islands within islands. You can find remote valleys where you might not see another human being for years. The South Island especially has vast wilderness areas where small groups could establish sustainable communities far from any zombie threats. And here's the kicker. New Zealand has a strong hunting culture and relatively relaxed gun laws. The population knows how to live off the land, hunt, fish, and survive in wilderness conditions. These aren't city dwellers who've never seen a vegetable garden. These are people who could actually make it work.
Iceland might seem like an odd choice, but it's actually brilliant for zombie survival. With only 370,000 people spread across an island the size of Kentucky, you have all the benefits of isolation with none of the overcrowding. The climate is your secret weapon. Zombies are basically walking meat, and meat doesn't do well in freezing temperatures. The Icelandic winter would literally freeze zombies solid. Even if they don't die from the cold, they'd move so slowly that a child could outrun them. Iceland is geothermally heated, meaning you have natural hot springs and geothermal energy that doesn't depend on complex infrastructure. While the rest of the world is freezing in the dark, Iceland stays warm and lit. The fishing industry means the population knows how to harvest food from the ocean. The volcanic soil is incredibly fertile for growing crops in greenhouses heated by geothermal energy. It's like having a natural bunker that produces its own food and energy. Plus, Iceland has a strong tradition of self-reliance and community cooperation. These aren't people who would immediately turn on each other. They'd work together to survive, which dramatically increases everyone's chances.
Canada is another great country to be in during the zombie apocalypse. Massive, the second largest country in the world, with only 38 million people. That's 4 people per square kilometer. In the Northern Territories, you can travel for hundreds of miles without seeing another human being. The wilderness is your ally. Canada has more untouched forest and wilderness than almost anywhere else on Earth. You could disappear into the Canadian Rockies or the Northern Forests and live off the land for decades. The zombie hordes would never find you, because there's simply too much space to search. The cold climate works in your favor, just like in Iceland. Canadian winters would slow down or stop zombie activity for months at a time. You'd have a seasonal reprieve, where you could move freely, gather supplies, and prepare for the next wave. Canadians have a culture of outdoor survival skills. Hunting, fishing,
camping, and wilderness survival are part of the national identity. The average Canadian is far better prepared for apocalypse survival than people from more urbanized countries. The infrastructure is designed for harsh conditions and isolation. Remote communities already know how to be self-sufficient for months at a time. The power grids, communication systems, and supply chains are built to handle extreme weather and isolation.
But even in the best countries, survival isn't guaranteed. You're still dealing with resource competition. And that's where things get complicated. In New Zealand, for example, you might avoid the zombie hordes, but you're still competing with other survivors for the best locations, the most defensible valleys, the most fertile farmland, the best fishing spots. These become valuable real estate that people will fight and die for. The key is getting there first and establishing your claim before others arrive. In the early days of the outbreak, while everyone else is panicking in the cities, you need to be moving toward your chosen survival location. Every day you wait is another day for someone else to get there first. You also need to think about group dynamics. A single person or family won't survive long term. You need a community, but not too large a community. The sweet spot is probably 20 to 50 people, enough to defend yourselves and maintain essential skills, but not so many that you can't feed everyone, or that internal conflicts become unmanageable. The countries that offer the best long-term survival aren't just about avoiding zombies. They're about rebuilding civilization. You need places where small communities can become self-sufficient and eventually grow into something larger. This is where geographic factors become crucial again. You need access to fresh water, arable land, building materials, and energy sources. You need defensible positions, but also trade routes for when you eventually make contact with other survivor communities. New Zealand, Iceland, and parts of Canada offer all of these advantages. They have the space, resources, and geographic protection to allow small communities to grow and thrive over generations. The worst countries, by contrast, might allow short-term survival but offer no path forward. Even if you survive the initial outbreak in Singapore or Bangladesh, what then? You're trapped in a resource-depleted wasteland with no way to build something sustainable. When the zombie apocalypse comes, and let's be honest, with the way the world is going, it's more a matter of when than if. Your survival won't depend on your zombie killing skills or your stockpile of canned goods. It'll depend on where you are when it all goes down. The harsh reality is that most people won't have the luxury of choosing their location. If you're in Bangladesh when the outbreak starts, you're probably not making it to New Zealand. But if you have the option, if you can plan ahead, then geography becomes your most powerful survival tool. The best countries offer space, resources, natural barriers, and populations that can work together rather than tear each other apart. The worst countries are death traps, where even the most prepared survivor becomes just another casualty. So here's my advice. If you're serious about apocalypse preparation, don't just stock up on supplies. Think about location. Think about where you want to be when the world ends. Because in the zombie apocalypse, real estate isn't just about location, location, location. It's about survival, survival, survival. The dead will inherit the earth, but the living will inherit the places smart enough to keep them out. Also, yes, of course, if you stuck with me this far, like and subscribe. I'd appreciate that. Thank you.